What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I'm your host, Todd Rosales, and it is great to be back. I say that every time because I love doing the show, folks. We've had an amazing series of shows coming that you should have just seen, depending on what order we decide to release these in. But if I know anything about anything, you should have seen Carson Humiston. You should have seen Ted Leidy. You should have seen Live from the Flowery. My friend Cynthia Brewer, and we have so many great episodes coming up for you. We are doubling down on this show. We're going to go back to 2020, 2021. We were delivering you multiple episodes a week. This is the podcast. If you want to learn about the cannabis industry, if you're outside of it, you want to learn more about being inside of it, watch us. If you're inside of it and you want to know some of the ins and outs and some of the specifics of the people you're trying to sell to, what they're looking for, watch this episode. If you're bored and you just need background noise, please watch our podcast. You can check out all 220 plus episodes of the show at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind. Please like, subscribe, comment, even if it's a negative comment. I welcome negative comments as well too. You also help the algorithm. For anything Cannabis Lab, check us out at joinclab.com or Cannabis Lab Eventbrite. We have monthly events the third Thursday of every month in Orlando, Tampa, Broward County, Dade County, and soon to be Boca Raton as well too. So if you want to come network with the cannabis industry, check us out if you're in the state of Florida, and that's at joinclab.com. Okay. My guest today is an alumni of the show. He's a friend. He's somebody that I've enjoyed watching his journey, and he was at a much different point in his journey about 2.5 years ago when we spoke to him the first time. So please welcome today's guest, Mike McDonald, the founder and CEO of Dablicator. Mike, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me on, man. It's good to see you again.
I mean, you've already been here once, so we've done something well enough to warrant you wanting to come back. Either that or those checks I've been writing to Rosie's team has really been paying off.
No, we've been watching you, man. We're proud of you. I mean, I think you were, when we did this, you're maybe at about 80 or 90 episodes. You're up over 200. Very impressive. The word is out. So I was very excited to get invited to come back on.
If I'm on the same timeline as Joe Rogan, I've got another like 4 or 5 years before my $250 million Spotify contract. So
all right.
I'm just going to keep on the journey.
Feel free to use me as a reference, my man.
There you go, man. So Mike, you guys are doing great with Dablicator. I'm starting to see it everywhere. I'm starting to see it in more places in Florida. And it just makes sense to me. It's a great delivery mechanism. And things have changed for me since the last time we spoke. Last time we spoke, this is why I do a podcast, because I can't write and I don't know grammar. So the last time that you and I had a discussion, I wasn't much of a dabber. I wasn't really into the oils and the extracts and everything else. I've always been a pure flower guy, but the West Coast has brought me something that has changed who I am. Because the one thing I hated about dabbing, and you've done a lot to change this, is I felt like a crackhead. Having to heat up the nail and drop it in and everything else. But all of a sudden I discovered the hash hole and I fell in love, and your tool makes that process quite simple. So give us an update. How's Dablicator doing? Give us some of the markets. Just talk to me about where the company is now. I know that, I think, would you guys just surpassed 100 million in revenue or something along those lines? I know I've seen 100M in the headlines, but like most of America, I didn't click. I just read the headline.
$100 million in retail revenue generated. I wish Dablicators, I had 100 million coming into my P&L, but what's exciting about it, we always think about, what is our business doing? How are we doing? What's our revenue? What's our cost structure? But I sort of had an epiphany a couple months ago, and I'm going, wait a second. We sold 2 million units through the market in the last 2 years at an average price point of over $50. So what that meant is, holy crap, like consumers voted with their dollars to the tune of over 100 million to buy this product from one of our partners. So that was kind of a revelation for me. And I thought that we're pretty proud of that from zero, right? 2.5 years ago. So yeah, man, I think when we talked last time, this is a product. It was a device that Jetty invented, Jetty Extracts in California about 2015, 16. And as a way to dab easier, as a way to eat cannabis oil easier, instead of using a sketchy syringe. It was only a Jetty product for years. And then about 2020, We got some interest from a few folks, and I thought, wow, this could be a platform because it could be used for all these different things. What if we offered it out to the market as a different way to experience cannabis? Perhaps, fingers crossed, a new category. And 2.5 years later, 42 brand partners in 26 markets, and $100 million plus in retail revenue. So I think we kind of nailed something, and it's been an exciting ride.
So we'll probably talk a little bit about some of the same things we spoke about the first time that you were on the show. But the thing I love about the Dablicator is making it convenient to folks who otherwise. So how do I explain this the right way? Like how I mentioned earlier, like you feel like I personally feel like a crackhead when I'm dabbing because of the whole rig thing and the torch and all that. I know just the same way I enjoy rolling a joint and smoking it that way, people sometimes enjoy the ritual of what they're doing.
Right.
So although I feel that way, some others don't. But at some point in time, when we look at the cannabis industry, there are the people who are legacy consumers. And when I say legacy consumers, that means anyone who's been buying cannabis to this point. And they all have the ways that they like to consume. But every day we get more of these canna curious or more of these people that are converting over into cannabis and giving them an ease of use for different form factors, I think is very important, right? In the same way that the pre-roll kind of revolutionizes, and it's something so simple, makes it easier for people to try cannabis, because at the end of the day, okay, I'm new to cannabis, I'm going to go buy some weed. Well, now I need to get a bowl, or I need to get a one hitter, or I need to get a bong, or I need to get something to smoke it out of, or I need to go make a waterfall or a gravity bong, right? Well, no, I can just go buy a 0.5 or some places a 0.3 or a 0.7 pre-roll, and I can try that, right? If all of a sudden I go into the store and I'm buying extracts for the first time, and first of all, the confusion that people are going, what's the difference between diamonds and batter and live resin and live rosin, right? But then all of a sudden I just get, and for anybody who's a purist in the cannabis world, I'm sorry for the terms I'm about to use, but I get a can of goo, right? A can of goo that I then have to keep in a fridge, and then I have to figure out how do I smoke that? Do I put it in a vaporizer? Do I do it in a traditional rig? And there's so many ways that you can leverage a cannabis extract, like you said, to consume it, to put it on flour, to put it directly into a dabbing device, whether that's an e-rig or a typical glass rig, right? It's not an easy process to do that, because if all of a sudden I hand someone who doesn't know what they're doing a thing of goo, well, how much am I doing with this? Like, how much am I taking out of it? How much? Yeah. So that's the one thing I love about the Dablicator, is not only is it a cleaner, simpler, more efficient methodology of delivering the extract, but you also portion it out, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's called the Dablicator, and you would think, well, it's perfect product for dabbing, and it is. I mean, folks are using it to dab if they're dabbing on the go, especially with these, like the Puffco Peaks and these sort of more portable dab rigs where you don't need a torch and the whole thing. I would say, though, interestingly enough, that's dabbing with the Dablicator is probably only about 15-20% of what we're seeing consumers use it for.
I would imagine those people are very set in their ways of how they do.
Well, yeah, there's definitely that ritual thing that you talk about, but it really comes down to how good the oil is, right? So with live rosin and some of the beautiful oils that you can get now, we're seeing the purists use Dablicator primarily as an on-the-go thing, because they like that ritual when they're at home, let's say. But it's being used, like you said, you can make a hash hole, you can make infused joints, you can put it on flour, you can twax a joint. One of the biggest things we're seeing right now, though, is using it as an edible.
So twaxing is when you put it around the outside, right?
Yeah, the outside, and that's more artistic. I don't love that because it tends to burn weird, but it's pretty fun.
I just make a huge mess when I do that.
Yeah, putting it in a joint, using the oil to actually seal the joint, seal the papers. So it's a convenient and versatile way to experience cannabis. We say it's the easiest, most versatile way to experience cannabis. It really can cut across all kinds of demos. So use cases. So you've got definitely the dabbers, and it makes it a little bit more approachable if you haven't dabbed before, because you don't need the dental pick or the tool and the this and the that. You can pop it right into a mini vaporizer that there's becoming more and more of. But what we're seeing is mixing it in, making your own moon rocks, mixing it into flour. It's just a really convenient device, using it for cooking. We're seeing more and more of that, right? All these herbal chefs that are coming out. It's just a great product. Imagine this, right? Back in the day, we've all made pot brownies or cookies, right?
Sure have.
You think about how you have to get there. It's multiple hours stinking up your apartment. Your neighbors are complaining. You're squeezing the oil through cheesecloth. Then you make your brownies. But guess what? You kind of maybe really don't know the potency of that oil by the time you got it, right? You don't know until about 2 hours into your buddy eating one. So what you do with Dablicator, for example, is that takes that whole guesswork out of it. You put in, to your point, dosability. So there's 50, 150, 50, 100, 150 dose lines on this particular Dablicator. So, if you want 10 milligram gummies, you put 100 milligrams, one little squirt into your brownie mix it up really good. You're going to have 10, almost perfect 10 milligram brownies. So as an edible, as adding it into food, putting it as a sublingual, we're seeing this. It's funny on Reddit, and we're just seeing folks using this in so many different ways that we hadn't thought necessarily were going to be huge. Refilling vape carts. There's markets now that not in California. You can buy the Dablicator for less than buying, let's say a vape cart. And so consumers are buying their own vape carts and using it to refill it. We don't advertise that or promote that, but so it's just a really unique tool. And I think our business model, where we really kind of hit it, is the branding side of it and the fun things that we're doing at retail. If you've been if you've been into a move store, Todd, in Florida, you walk in and there's a 6-foot Dablicator there, a blow up Dablicator. There's stuff running on the there's video running on the screens. There's education stuff there. You might see all the bud tenders wearing Dablicator t-shirts. So we've really gone out to try and educate the bud tender and the consumer that this is a fun, new, easy way to experience cannabis. And we think what we found is literally like a new category. Like it's a category that kind of didn't exist before. And it's been a wild ride the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, man. I agree with you, because I look on the website, I look on the Move website, and I just see the examples you have. And these are just, I don't know, to me, it's just things I never thought about doing with oil, right? Like, so we have a lot of great extract companies in this state, and then I'll single one out just because they're universally known. I don't think you're working with them yet, but 710 Labs is down here.
Our first partner. We're doing a huge amount. 710 is one of our biggest partners they launched their RSO program in Dablicator.
Well, ask them why the F they're not bringing it to Florida yet.
It's coming. It's Florida and Michigan are coming with Dablicator.
Cool. Well, you heard it here first, folks. I'm excited for that, because again, when I first got my first experience with the Dablicator, I started doing hash holes with it, and this was, I think more of your partners back then were doing more distillate and like RSOs and stuff. And now it's great to see the live rosins, the live resins, and I will interchange those the wrong way 100 times out of 100. But to see those products being put in a Dablicator, and as someone who's, I'll say it, relatively decent at rolling my own joints, it makes it exponentially easier to roll a hash hole, because I can kind of, like, when I do it, I don't know. I'm just starting to think, like, if anybody really cares about my personal use, but screw them, it's my show.
No, it's perfect.
Like, I can roll a joint and I can kind of position it and then take a Dablicator and very easily kind of lay a line out across the flower and then like fold it over into the middle. Whereas to do it a normal way is I have to take like some kind of a putty knife or a dental pick, and then I have to make sure it's super cold, because if it's not super cold, it's going to stick to literally everything. And then I have to, make a line out of it and try to take this line, which is sticking to my fingers, and put it to the flower. Then it's like the old tar and feather thing, where now I have oil and flour stuck to my fingers, and then I try to roll the paper and the oil's all over the outside of the paper. Like,
and you lick your hands and you're high for about 24 hours
basically. And something that most people that do it professionally can probably do in 2 seconds, like, it turns into a giant mess. And this is just something that's so simple to make a hash hole with. And those are, to me, some of the most enjoyable things that I have with oil. And now in the Dablicator form, like, I'm more likely to go and purchase extracts where I wasn't before, where I was a pure flower guy for this particular application. And then the more and more I look on the site, just even seeing somebody has a cup of tea that they're putting a couple of drops of oil in, I never think of that, because there's something like, I don't necessarily, and I feel like some people have the same issues as me. Like, I like to have a little bit of cannabis in the morning. I like to have it early enough that I can kind of consume and then have like a half hour to an hour before work, before I really have to get into my conversational part of my day and everything else. And it just puts me in a better mindset, but I don't always have the ability or the time to go physically smoke a joint. So to be able to take something like this, put a couple of drops in coffee, for me, invaluable. And it's not something I've done, but it's something I want to do. And if I was just to buy a, as I've been calling it, people are going to kill me for this, a tub of goo, being able to measure that out and figure it out and get it in there. And even now they sell friggin' hot knives. So this way you can do it easily. Like, it doesn't sound as appealing. And on top of that, as someone who's relatively cheap when it comes to cannabis, because cannabis is expensive, it's a better way to actually truly portion it out. Because even with joints, when I buy an eighth, maybe I'll have 3 to 6 joints, depending on how I roll them and I'm eyeballing nugs. Or I can buy a pre-rolled eighth and I know I'm going to have 5 to 7 joints every time because they've already been done and weighed for me. So I see the advantages all around.
I think I just kind of stick on your hash hole example. It's a really great example. That works for you. Like, what we're finding is, people just rave about this as a hash hole product, but you have someone that just really loves it because they put it sublingually under their tongue, and it's the perfect hit for them. Maybe their medicine, right? Like an RSO. So we found that while it's versatile, it's personal. Like, folks use it in a way that just works for them. And, maybe you'll try some other things, but, if you never end up putting it in your coffee, that's okay. Even though it's kind of cool. You like it for hash holes. You like it to, maybe make some moon rocks. And if you're a bud tender, that's where it's interesting, because all the stuff you're seeing on the site is really, if you can imagine, that's all the, it's dablicator.com. It's all the education, all of these assets, if you will, these digital assets are available in store, printed. And, you got a bud tender, somebody walks up and says, hey man, like 26% flower, and my tolerance has really gone up. I'd like to smoke flower. I don't really want to go to extracts. What do you think? Oh, grab this, add some potency to your flower. Oh, cool. I've got, some dexterity issues. I don't really want to syringe, this is easier to use. So we do a really good job. I think our marketing team does a really good job. We call it a customer success team, of educating the bud tenders, spending a lot of time doing that with our resources so that they can solve problems for their patients and their customers. And one of them would be a hash hole, right? Hey man, I like to make my own infused joints. What's a good way to do that? Here you go. So so it's been cool. I mean, like I said, 710 was actually our first major brand on the platform. It's when I kind of knew we had something, because they're pretty picky and who they work with and how they, what sort of they're as legit as it gets, right? So I think they really gave Dablicator some legitimacy in the market. But now, I mentioned 42 brand partners in 23 states, DC, Puerto Rico, and Canada, and we're growing. And when you walk into a store in New Jersey, for example, you'll see 4 Dablicator brands. That was my dream. You walk into a store and it's its own little category instead of a thing. That's awesome. That's really what we're focused on.
I can tell you that's super impressive, because I know the industry and I'm not 100% sure I can name 42 cannabis brands. To be completely honest,
there's a lot more, believe it or not. It's, think about it. True Leaf has multiple house brands. Verano has Move. They have CT.
So actually, so we call them house brands now because it's vertically integrated company, but most of those are actually licensed brands from others. This is like, so when you look at True Leaf, they have Binsk, they have Alien Labs and Connected. And even though they're Florida brands like Delicioso and Black Tuna Gang, I mean, those are licensed from old school cultivators. So
yeah, I would say, though, at least, and I'm not an expert on this, but my sense is those licensing deals are a very small part of their revenue. What you'll see Yeah, what you'll see with Parallel is, their different brands really make up the majority. Sotera Wellness makes up majority of their stuff, and why? Because they don't have to pay licensing fees, right?
Oh yeah.
But and they have on the vertically integrated side, they're not buying from wholesale. And then they use these other licensing brands as innovation to get consumers into the store to try some different stuff. But what we found, I mean, our simple pitch to the vertically integrated and even the major brands is, look, it's the most of the case, it's the exact same oil as your vape. It's the same machines as your vape. You don't have to invest in equipment. You have a lot of markets are sitting on kilos and kilos of distillate or kilos and kilos of other stuff. And it's an accretive sale, meaning it adds to the basket size. We've seen as much as a 60% larger basket size at retail when someone buys a Dablicator, which is kind of music to the ears of a retailer, right? They don't want to have to put in capital equipment. They don't want to have to teach their production team anything new. They don't want to reformulate their oil. And most importantly, they don't want XYZ cartridge stealing revenue from ABC cartridge.
Yeah.
So Dablicator goes right on top. And so it's a great business case as well as a use case, as you've been sort of speaking to.
Oh, and I want to talk about both sides of that, right? Because I want to transition into the business in a second. But the thing, again, just kind of touting the product, and we'll get into this on the business side. It is a much better mousetrap, but the beautiful thing about it is it's easy to use, it's accurate, it portions it out, and it's disposable. So it's not even like I'm buying something from you that I'm filling with my own oil and then I got to clean it, because part of the reason why I don't use glass is because I'm the person who uses it till it gets gross. And then I go, well, I'm just going to throw this away because I'm not going to clean it. If I had to clean a Dablicator, I'd never buy it. But the fact that I'm literally getting this tool every time I want to buy new oil or some kind of extract is, to me, the best part.
And it's discreet. I mean, it's discreet. You can throw it in your backpack and have your, have a small vaporizer and be on a ski lift or on a mountain bike and stop and have some fresh oil instead of just vaping or smoking.
The partnership with 710 is huge, because I'm pretty sure they partner with you, and Bonza Pasta is probably the only two partners that they have.
And they're very independent. Some of our partners we're like hand in glove with them on the marketing side. Some are just like, hey, we like your tool, but we got it from here. Interestingly enough, we sort of, our partnership with 710 has been developing recently, where we went into their labs in Oakland and in Colorado and really looked at the efficiency of them filling the Dablicators, learned that they were doing things, in a way that were really slowing down their production. So we even jumped in, and it's a very common part of our business model is lab success, because we've had many partners that are like, hey man, I can only fill a couple thousand of these a week, because we're like, well, wait a second. So we go in and we look at their setup. We're like, oh man, you could do this, this, and this, and it would triple your output. And they're like, great, that's killer, because we didn't know that. So that's what we did recently with 710, and it's been exciting because they're now able to get more product out into retail where they were confined before.
Nice. So let's transition to the business more and kind of go back a couple of years, right? I know that this was kind of developed at Jetty, and then it was spun off into its own thing.
Yeah.
Better mousetraps are the best business opportunities and the worst business opportunities, because at that point you have to prove to everybody that it is a better mousetrap. And as you've been saying, a lot of that comes with significant education and support. And that's not always the easiest thing in the world. So I imagine, at the beginning, you're in a great place now, 42 brands, it's being adopted, it's growing, it's becoming its own category. I imagine when you first started this journey, it was a lot tougher. It was a lot tougher to convince people. And again, I don't know the price points and everything else. I imagine maybe it's a little bit more expensive than a syringe or a traditional package, but to convince people why this is better, I feel like it takes a lot of demo and a lot of effort and just really a lot of you to begin. So give us a little bit about the beginning of the journey and what that was like.
Well, and I might have alluded to this, and I'll apologize in advance when we talked 2.5 years ago. But so we live in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, big Apple people, right? I've studied Steve Jobs and what he's done forever. And one of the things he did is he invented things we didn't even know we wanted.
Yeah.
Right. So again, not to compare us to that, but I think what we found with Dablicator is people weren't even sure. They were like, well, that's awesome. I didn't even know I wanted that. How we grew really organically. Like, I didn't know how big this was going to be. I just told my partners at Jetty, I'm like, hey guys, give me 6 months. I think I got something here. And then 710 came on board and Soterra Wellness came on board, and they were really doing it themselves. When we started getting proactive, we reached out. Actually, our first big partnership was Columbia Care. And we just connected with the guy that ran retail marketing, John Pratt, for Columbia Care Delaware. And he goes, I saw this thing. It's really cool. Can you get me some for my 3 Delaware stores? We said, absolutely. And he said, here's some education information. We sold out of like 500 or 600 Dablicator units at $110 per gram. I mean, that's the crazy thing in Delaware at the time. Right now you get $20 a gram in California. And the excitement kind of happened because we had a champion, if you will, right? John was just really into it. And then Volley Hayhurst, who's more of a regional guy, they just loved it. They loved the excitement. They loved the extra revenue. And we just supplied them with a lot of fun, good educational stuff. And so that's been our model, just growing from there. We've got we've got about 7 or 8 of the MSOs on the platform. We've got a couple that have just, said, yeah, we're not interested for now. And we would never even be successful with those guys if they didn't really embrace the education piece that we bring to the table. So little by little, we got one brand on, another brand. We're learning what works in different markets. If you can get the right decision maker, when it's really like, hey guys, no CapEx, increase revenue, super easy, exciting, innovative product. If you can get mind share and they're not running around with 5 million things, it's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to get those no-brainers and then prove it. We're with Cresco right now, just in Maryland, and we're crushing it with them in Maryland. And that's going to spawn a larger program nationally. With Verano, we've got Connecticut and Florida done really, really well, proven ourselves, have a model that works. The key model is, as I mentioned, if the retail marketing team embraces what we have to deliver on the education and the marketing side, it goes really, really well. And so now I was just in Chicago with the Verano team, like, okay, what other states do we want to grow into? So we haven't asked too many favors. We said, look, give us a shot, let us prove it to you. And it's proven, and the reorders, and you know this too, with the condition of the industry, nobody's ordering months and months of hardware into the warehouses. So we're on it. We're also pretty good partners on the business side. We're just-in-time inventory delivery. We drop ship directly to their different labs. We can have them a brand new program out the door in 6 weeks. We can have reorders for them in 3 to 4 weeks. So we've really tried to take the pain out of doing business with us and make it really, profitable for them and simple and exciting.
Dude, you're 100% right. I mean, the industry's at a point right now, and I have this conversation daily at work where it's nobody's buying nice to haves anymore. They're only buying need to haves, right? Because nobody can afford nice to have, and that goes with products, that goes with services, right? So for you to be doing what you're doing at this point in time in the industry and growing and expanding, to me, that just shows that partnering with you helps drive revenue. And obviously that can be on the partner as well too, but if companies didn't see that driving more sales to their brand, they wouldn't be partnering with you right now, because that's just where the industry is, even if they wanted to. So that means that everyone that you're talking to sees true value in increasing revenue by offering this new SKU or offering this new product or putting it into your form factor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't find another product, a new product, that's generated $100 million in retail revenue in the last 18 months. I don't know of one. Maybe a brand, maybe somebody like Cookies or somebody came in with their brand portfolio, but this is basically a single SKU across multiple oils and multiple brands. And, and that revenue is almost entirely brand new revenue, Todd. So that's not like it didn't steal market share. Maybe it stole market share from syringes, but syringes are such a small piece of the market.
Yeah.
It was on top of the basket. I mentioned earlier, we're seeing an increase in basket size as much as 60%. And that's what retailers are looking for. They're not looking for trade out revenue. They're looking for new revenue. And then all the other things I mentioned, we do the marketing for them. There's no capital equipment expense, blah, 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 blah. it makes it a pretty compelling value prop. And then we're kind of good people. I think we like to say we're pretty cool. We have fun. We've got a really small but talented crew, and we work hard to make our partners money. And that's what we do every day when we get up in the morning. How can we make them? How can we help them sell more of their oil and their brand? We're just like the intel inside in the background.
So here's the problem I have interviewing you is I start looking at websites to like research and ask questions, and then I just end up shopping. So
what are you shopping? What are you looking to buy?
I look at the sites that, like the Verano sites, and and I start just looking to see what they're offering, and then I'm starting to read the strains that they have and the different extracts that they have. And next thing I know, I'm like adding stuff to a cart. I'm like, wait a second, I'm in the middle of an interview. That's not why I came to this website. But no, I think that, as I just mentioned, like no one's buying nice to have, they're buying need to have. And it's 100% right. Like, I think with extracts, it was a thing that people made, especially in the black market. Like, they made it and they just got it out there and they gave it to you in whatever container it came in. Like the same way that flour was sold in Ziploc or some kind of like plastic bag for the longest time. Maybe if you had a higher end dealer, if you were buying it from New York, it came in a film canister, and then all of a sudden the market legalizes and we're sealing it in Mylar bags, which are a little bit better than your plastic bags, or we have glass jars. And I don't even think we found the best form factor for flour yet, but oil was again, it's just coming in a container, or they call it a bucket. And it's just this, it to me, it never really seemed like the right way to buy it, to apply it to all the things that you want to do. And, you look at how, like, you get a gram of it and it looks like nothing, but it's because you're only using a little bit at a time. That's why I see, like, at some point in time, if cannabis had been illegal for a lot longer and extracts had been more popular, I see this as being the de facto form factor. Even 5-10 years from now, it might, to me, be the majority shareholder of how we buy oils on the market.
Well, that would be awesome. I hadn't thought about it that way. I do think there's
if it happens, play this clip. Okay.
Okay. We got it. Yeah. You said, you heard it first here. I just think my goal is that it's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, every single brand, they offer cartridges, they offer, buckets, they offer, whatever they offer, and they have a Dablicator, because it's just ubiquitous part of the experience. I don't think there's anything more versatile than it. I don't think you can say that there's a product out there that you can do all the things that, if you look at the website, all those use cases. So we just want to be part of the discussion. We think it's not a replacement for anything. It's an enhancement device. And, honestly, at a certain point, and this is how the model was designed this way. We don't do exclusivity, for example, because we want multiple brands in a retail store so that consumers and patients have choice around the oil that they want or the brand that they want, right? It's your brand, your oil, and then we do all the legwork for you. And by the way, we didn't really talk about it. What I love most about it is it's a beautiful product, especially with the logo on it and the packaging that we do. Cartridges, and nobody's putting their brand on a syringe. You can barely get your brand on a cartridge, right? So this is what's cool about this is you're carrying around a move device and showing your friends, right?
To me, I mean, it's basically like if it's the combination cartridge and battery as far as the way that you can advertise on it, and that's what cartridges are missing. Like if the battery is where you have most of the real estate to where you can logo or customize it or anything else. Yeah. And that is one of the cool things about Dablicator. I mean, it looks like a vape cartridge too. It's funny enough. It almost looks like you can pop the top off, put on like a mouthpiece and use it that way. But what I like about it too, and again, and this is just going to turn into a love fest for me, is one of the things that I really like is when I find something I like to beat it to death. Like I like it. So if I find an oil or an extract I like, for example, and I brought up 710 because they have a blueberry haze that I like. I'm a huge haze fan. I want to be able to leverage that extract across all form factors in which I'd use it. So I want to be able to vape it. I would like to be able to put it into a hash hole. Now you have it in my head that I just want to consume it off the tip of the Dablicator. But I like the fact that it's like, oh, this is oil that I like. I'm not restricted to, oh, do they sell it in a cart or do they sell it this way? I can just buy that and use that to apply it into any of the methodologies that I'd like to consume in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's very personal. People, if you go on Reddit or you look on some of the reviews, are like, oh my God, it's made my hash hole experience amazing. Oh, my mom uses it for this. And it's just cool, right? I mean, that's why cannabis is such an interesting business. It's why a lot of us are into it, because the plant is super cool. It does so many different things for so many different people. And then the flip side on the business, it's such a fascinating business, right? I mean, what other damn business in the world is like our business, where everything is vertical per state? You can't write off your anything other than your cost of goods on taxes. It's crazy, but I think this is a breath of fresh air in the industry at a time that it needed it, because it's new revenue, it's easy, and people are, like, we have partners that are operating with a third of the staff that they had a year ago. So we become part of their marketing team. We say, we got that handle for you. You want that customized? Like, if you look at the Move site or even the cannabis site in Florida, we probably did a lot of the custom branding for them. All the mock-ups, all the video. We just do it because we know you're busy. We know you're barely holding on with the rest of your business. Let us do it for you. I was talking to Steve Cancel. I don't know if you know who Steve is, but he runs the Northeast marketing for Verano, and I just saw him at their big grow in outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And it's just cool to hear these things. He's like, I told Kevin Moses and the guys at Verano Chicago that you guys, hands down, are the best partner we've ever worked with in the history of this company. I'm like, what the hell, dude? We just make a cool, like, product, and that's really great to hear. But I think what he really means is that we don't just sell them a piece of hardware. We jump in. Like, here's an example. I don't know if you saw this. The Dablicator van rolled around Florida for like 2 months this past year. We put a van on the road. My insane brother Patrick, we wrapped his 27-foot Sprinter van, and I called him up. Actually, he's one of my best buddies, and every time I have some harebrained business, and we talked a little bit about my past, right? Like the snowshoe business, the this, the that. And I'm like, hey, Pat, man, what do you want to drive around the country and promote Dablicator for 6 months? He's like, yeah, no problem. Can we wrap your van? He goes, fuck yeah, no problem. I said, how much do I need to pay? He goes, I don't care, McD, like whatever. So he goes on the road. It was supposed to be 3 months. He stays out 7 months, sleeping in the van, going by over 1,000 dispensaries, high-fiving, giving out, education, taking people out to dinner because it was just a love fest. And like, who does that? Mm-hmm. Like, I guarantee you C-Cell and AVD isn't doing that. I mean, who the hell puts a van on the road? Nope. And this is a $3. Look, this is a $3 item. Like, we're selling them $3 and change at a time. So it's not like we have this massive margin or this massive wholesale cost or price, but we just, we figured out a way to stay lean and promote the hell out of it and get people excited. And I think we're building something really, really cool and special. And if you look out there on social media, I mean, you just have people that just love this thing and love the story. So
I mean, your business sits at such a nexus location where you're building a form factor, right? It's a product category line. It's essentially a piece of packaging. It's a brand in itself, and you're building all these things at once together. And I imagine that's why companies like working with you, because you are still building your own brand, but that brand is now becoming a product set or another subset of products. And so to partner with you, like, you're still building your business, you're still promoting it. Like you said, you don't see C-Cell out there on social media promoting everyone who has C-Cell hardware. It just doesn't happen. They kind of sell you the hardware and good luck, slap you on the back, say, hey, have fun with it. To find someone who's actually willing to partner, that goes back to what I was saying, is the need to have, where it's not only are you getting a great product that's going to attract more types of users to a category that, let's be honest, is more high margin for the cultivators and processors, but you're also getting someone who's in the trenches with you that are going to help push your product forward. And everybody needs that right now because everybody's lean as can be.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how we figured it out, man. We just kind of thought about a cool new product. We made it as easy or frictionless as possible for our partners. We figured out a model where we can jump in and just do a tremendous amount of video and digital stuff for them, which doesn't cost a lot of money, right? It's just a really good designer and really good sort of SOPs. And it's kind of been a snowball and it started to roll. And I think we're maybe in the first or second inning with Dablicator, because it's building on itself. Like you said, you're seeing it in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Like I went to the Flower Expo up in Western Mass 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm jealous I didn't get to go.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I'm walking around with a Dablicator hat on just because it's never off my freaking head. And I mean, bud tenders, yo, Dablicator, man, we love you. It's awesome. We met the Dablicator van guy, and you know, it feels like, and again, selective listening and Kool-Aid, we make it and drink it, but it just feels like we're a breath of fresh air in the industry. People dig what we're doing. They dig the product. They love the innovation. You know, the business case is what it is too. But the real compelling thing we're seeing is just people dig it. The bud tenders, the patients that use it. And that's nice, right? That's not a bad way to get up in the morning and feel good about what you do, right?
Well, think about how many people have truly built brands in the cannabis space that aren't essentially plant touching, right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're plant touching at some point, but Dablic, like, you don't own cannabis licenses. You're not putting that product out there. You're partnering with them in a form factor. So
I think PAX is a good example.
Yeah.
So PAX is probably the most analogous to what we did. And in fact, Jetty is, I don't know anymore because PAX now touches the plant, but the PAX model was pick a handful of brand partners in a market and support them. Jetty was the largest global PAX partner, period, for years. And so I saw that PAX model. I said, what if we use that model, but made it much more custom, made it much more about your brand and your oil instead of PAX. And that's what we've done. And, you know, we don't have an interest in coming out with our own oil and our own brands, just because that's not that's a much more of a hands-on, much more capital intensive game plan. You know, when PAX went out and raised $420 million, they had to figure out a way how to spend it. And that's what they're doing now. They're having a lot of success. But, you know, I guess C-Cell's an example, ABD's an example, you know, the hardware stuff in general. But, you know, they're selling this works better than this, but it's pretty much the same thing. We're saying this is a new category that's fun and will get you more revenue. And we're building the brand. And we asked politely, we said, hey, you know, we're getting a lot of recognition on this brand. And we have on our team, our team's combing websites to say, hey, Arise, one of our biggest partners in Illinois, AERIZ, they're like the 10% market share in Illinois. Hey, one of your websites still calls this thing a syringe and it's a dab. Oh, no problem. So we're out there really trying to make sure that our little brand is getting its day, but it still becomes your brand, focus on your brand and your oil.
Do you get outside of the syringe, do you guys have competition? Is anyone trying to rip you off? Because I'm not familiar. I've never seen anything else like it.
You know, that $100 million story, and Patricia will probably laugh. I really pushed for it to come out because I think we were sort of in the shadows for a long time. And I imagine we might have poked a few bears, but you know, there's a syringe. There were a couple of dispensers out there, applicators, but they didn't work well. We've probably, you know, half of our partnerships started by replacing a syringe or replacing a couple of these products that were just, nobody promoted them. They just were sort of part of a suite of 5,000 other items you could get from a distributor. You know, in some respects, I encourage the competition because I think it's going to help propel the category. I'd like to think our product is, you know, we have a new version of it coming out in 3-4 months. It's going to be upgraded. We have some interesting things in the pipeline. But we're running hard. I tell my team, let's run hard, let's run fast. Somebody's going to come after us. That's okay. Let's just make sure we've established this category and we're the leader in it, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah, man. Well, I love the main reason I love what you're doing from a business standpoint so much is it's probably so easy, especially in today's cannabis market, to get distracted and try to be everything to everyone. And like, I'm sure as you've gotten the door and you've closed deals where they're like, hey, could you do this? Or could you make it do that? Or whatever it is. And you guys have focused on what you've done very, very well. You're laser focused on it. It's the only product that you have out. And a lot of people are scared to do that. Like, I'll tell you right now, I'm working with a lot of ancillary businesses and service providers, and every single one I talk to, they're building newer and newer streams of revenue and getting into areas of the business that they don't really know. And it's because they're not doing well, or they're scared of not having the growth because they raised all this money. You guys put your head down, you focused on one thing really, really well, and look what it's done for you.
Yeah, and look, in fairness, we looked recently at an edibles program where we would sell you everything you need to make your own edibles at home. And we were kind of excited about it and giving it to the retailers as a gift with purchase and so forth. But it was all of a sudden a much bigger lift. It was a whole different business. So we sort of pumped the brakes on that and just refocused on, to your point, what we know and what we do well. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to get distracted, especially when you got a tremendous amount of pressure on you from investors and all that. What's cool about our little company, we spun it out of Jetty. It's profitable. It's self-sustaining. So nobody on my team or on the partnership over at Jetty screws with us. I joke with my team all the time. I'm like, look, sales cures all ills. As long as we keep growing, those guys aren't going to screw with us. So they just sort of go, hey, McD, keep doing what you're doing. We'll concentrate on this very difficult business called cannabis in California. Jetty just launched in New York, which is super exciting.
Nice.
And we just launched Dablicator in New York with Jetty and another brand. They just launched in Colorado. So it's exciting to see what they're doing as well. But we're just kind of trying to stay under the radar somewhat, although we're not that much under the radar anymore.
No.
And just keep growing, man. Just keep making people money and having fun.
Can you give us any kind of indication of what the future Dablicator might look like? I'm sure a lot of it is top secret, but anything that you can give us some insight into.
It's just new and improved. You won't notice much when you look at it. The tip's a little bit differently designed, frankly, to make it a little easier to fill vape carts. That's what I said. That's a market that's a use case we didn't even know existed until we got into like Michigan and some of the other markets. The product itself, we're just tightening up the dosing. You can dose it a little smaller doses now when it's coming out. It'll be launched at MJ Biz. It's really just a version upgrade.
Cool.
And then we have some things in the hopper that are not are probably 2024 items that when we're ready to talk about those, I'll certainly give you a call.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I love it. And we got to do one of these in person at some point.
I like it.
Travels come here. Those are
you
a little
come
bit
in MJ
fun.
Biz for. I imagine you're at MJ Biz.
I'll be there. We'll do it.
All right. Yeah, we're there, man. And I'll look you up. I'm down in Florida. I spent a lot of time in Florida this winter. We did that big pirate fest in Tampa with Move. What's that thing called?
Gasparilla.
That was insane. We're doing really, really well in Florida, which is great. I think it's amazing. It's 800,000-900,000 patients only. And it's kind of a pain in the ass to get your medical card, but the kind of revenue that market is seeing and what we're seeing, I mean, we're selling millions of dollars of Dablicators per month at retail, right? So the Moves and the cannabis and the Soterra Wellnesses of the world, they're getting, I don't know, at least $1 million, $1.5 million of brand new revenue every month.
You're in like 4 of the top 5 stores. So the state's done $1.4 billion in revenue off 800,000 patients, 800 and change. So and rec is going to be on the table. It's going to be the same structure that it is now, which as a patient, I don't love, but hey, you know what? If it's rec, it's going to open it up. The revenue is going to be absolutely ridiculous down here.
I agree.
So Mike, we are getting to the top of the hour here. I want to let you go, but let's anything you want to promote or say before we get out of here?
No, man, I just want to thank you for doing what you do, brother. I know it's a tough grind out there. You like that one? And just keep doing it. I love you giving us the platform. I mean, honestly, what at my age, I'm older than you kids. I just love having a product that is fun. I'm able to sort of teach a team. I've been in cannabis. I'm now OG, I guess, 6-7 years. I've kind of jumped around to some different programs and opportunities, couple public exits. And this has been the most fun career, hands down. I love the team, both at Jetty and then my small team. So I'm just blessed to kind of keep doing it. I think this is my last rodeo too. The Jetty guys are gonna have to kick me out the door in time for me to retire.
It's awesome, man. Well, I love seeing the journey. I love seeing where you were 2.5 years ago when we first talked, seeing where you are now and continuing to see the process. I love every time I see a new store carry your product. It's exciting to me because I'm like, hey, I know that guy. I interviewed him early on, and I get to have a share of the enjoyment and your success. And as long as you guys keep coming on this show, I'll keep doing it.
All right, brother. I really appreciate it. Good to see you, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you to Mike and thank you to everybody at home. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. As always, if you missed any part of this episode, you can always check it out on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/elevate your grind. I think we're going to start throwing them up on Twitter too. It's a little bit more cannabis friendly. So check it out. EYG podcast _. Yeah, somebody took our handle, so we couldn't do it, but EYG podcast _ for all things Cannabis Lab. Join CLab.com or Cannabis Lab Eventbrite. Folks, it's been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. We'll see you next time.